Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to my new video where we are going to be going over how you can look to improve as an ADC player. Now, recently I did a big climb that was started all the way down in Iron and climbed up all the way to Diamond, playing an extremely off-meta support, playing Veigar support. And you're going to ask me, hey, Flofit, why are you doing an ADC video after just doing this really big climb, proving that you can do certain things with support? Well, I feel like I am able to watch two different ADCs and their playstyles and how they are playing out, and I started to identify is a successful ADC doing and what is a really unsuccessful ADC doing, and I would love to share that information with you. Now, at every single point in my videos, I am going to have a link, a timestamp for skipping around. They're going to be at the top of the page as well as the scrolling bar at the bottom of the video. It is going to be segmented into the different tips. I heavily recommend that you really look at the first tip because I think it is one of the most important keys to climbing, no matter what role you're in. The biggest reason that I wanted to cover ADCs first in this style is because I met a lot of ADCs that are extremely frustrated. I met a few that I duoed with that were really fun, kind of cool. We tried out different combos. I tried out one person, we were doing a lot of Lulu and Kog'Maw. One person, we were doing a lot of Veigar and Draven, which was really successful. So I wanted to share some of these tips with you guys. With all that out of the way, I am a little bit limited. I'm only going to be going over 5 major tips. So if you want to put down your own tips down below, I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'm not one of those people that think I know everything. I'm just really looking to put out as much information and help out as many people as possible and create like an open forum for the community so everyone can get a little bit better and share their thoughts and their own climb. If you want to get in contact with me directly, you can follow my Twitch. That's going to be in the pinned comments, or you can join the Discord. Send me a direct message. I try to be as responsive as possible. So let's get into tip number 1. Okay, and getting into tip number 1, I'm a little bit visual learner, so I kind of set up this weird little slide, and I know it's a little simplified, but I think this will help maybe some other visual learners that are like myself. So I want you guys to visualize the top line of shapes as the enemy team and the bottom line of shapes as your team. So how you really want to look at League of Legends as you can only learn from the other shapes and you can only change your shapes. So say that you are this white ADC circle that you can change, and this is where your input comes in. It's going to be morphed by how bad you are. Maybe you're really low CS and it's maybe half a circle now, and you really aren't a complete player. These are the things that you can change so you can win more games and that you can climb. The last thing that you would want to do and want to focus on in games is saying, God, I have such a freaking green diamond in mid lane and they never roam and they never help me. How can I ever climb when I never get any mid laners that help me? They always go 0-12 and the enemy Yasuo is always 12-0. It's impossible to carry. This is one of the most defeatist mindsets that is never going to lend yourself to carrying. So when you're playing ADC, you can look for patterns in the enemies and your allies, but you only want to focus on what you can do in your input in the game, increasing your CS, increasing your micro, increasing your macro, increasing your trading patterns, increasing your overall damage output, increasing your positioning. There's always something that you can be looking to improve. The only thing that you can learn from your enemies and allies in the lower elos is, hey, this is a common mistake a lot of people make in this elo. Hey, this elo never respects stealth champions like Twitch or Evelyn. How can I look to take advantage of that? How can I set up my lane for common mistakes that are made in your elo? So I want you guys to focus on what you can change and your input into the game and look for common mistakes that is going to happen around you. You shouldn't want games that are just stomps all the time because that's not fun. You're not learning anything. You might be getting LP and climbing a bit, but you are not learning at all about the game because you are just getting rewarded for doing very minimum amount of work because your entire team is stomping around you. And the converse is, hey, the enemy team just absolutely stomped your team. You're not going to learn too much outside of maybe, hey, this is some common mistakes that we made in the early game. These are things I can look to take advantage of in different games. Every time you lose, the enemy team is showing you a game plan and how they effectively won a game. So you can always learn from small things in games and look to improve. So never try and blame the green diamonds. Never try and blame the red circles or the support that's a donut because he can't hit a single hook. Only focus on what you can change. If there are supports in your elo that never hit hooks, you should not be worried about hook champions. Maybe you can start playing very immobile ADCs. Maybe you can play some Jinx. Maybe you can play some Varus. Maybe play some affiliates. Take advantage of, hey, my current elo people don't really hit hooks that much. Why don't I just take advantage of that and play some hyper scaling champions? Hey, people never know how to really take advantage of the early and mid game. Why don't I just start playing really scaling champions? So you can always learn a lot from these games. Just look to start identifying shapes. You can even picture, if say you have a feeding player and there's a shape you really don't like a rectangle. You can always say, God damn, I have such an orange rectangle on my team. What can I learn from this? And what can I change to get out of this elo and get away from these freaking orange rectangles? So I know it's a little convoluted, but let me know what you guys think. All right, that will wrap up tip number 1. All right, and let's jump into tip number two, and I want to talk about champion pools. This is going to be extremely important for you to understand when you're playing ADCs, because there are a lot of really tempting, strong ADCs in the current meta. One thing I want you guys to understand is the more condensed your champion pool, the better, because this is going to help you with your overall learning curve when you are getting to start understanding the different matchups for your champions and really start hammering in, hey, I have this item breakpoint. Hey, I just got Sheen on Ezreal. I can outtrade this guy. Hey, I just got my Infinity Edge. Hey, it's a PF sword into pickaxe tier. Hey, it's this into that. And you know when you can win in certain situations with certain supports. You're going to learn so much quicker when you're just focusing on particular ADCs. That's why I heavily encourage you guys, if you like doing one tricks, I think that can be good. Also, maybe a blind pick and then an offensive pick, or maybe at the most, I'd say 3 champions in your champion pool is probably ideal, with a blind pick, a really offensive champion where you're feeling good, you're feeling like you can carry, and then maybe a really defensive champion where, hey, maybe you're struggling, you're in a little bit of a slump, just play this champion and be a solid team player. So how you can look to do this is by looking at your OPGG, by looking at whatever website you use and being like, hey, God, I'm under a 50% win rate with this, and I don't even have 6 CS a minute. This is a sign of a champion they should probably dump, because you aren't really seeing too much success with. If you're, as much as I hate to say it, because I do play a lot of support, I absolutely hate playing with Ezreals in an NA, because they're very rarely played to the highest potential, and they just kind of sit at max Q range and throw out Qs, and then when they lose, they just say, oh, I had the highest damage. Well, it's because you're just poking a max range Q all the time and not maximizing your auto attack weaving in between your trading, and never being offensive and taking advantages of where you had advantages in certain points of the game. So understanding the champions, your win rates, your overall CS is going to be very big. If you're someone that struggles with CS and then maybe only have 5 games played as Sivir, but you have a 60% win rate with 8 or 9 CS a minute, that maybe should be a champion that you should look to pick up. Maybe you're playing in an elo, you're in bronze and silver, you're seeing all these Twitches pop off because no one respects stealth. That could be a champion you can look to pick up. You want to do some trial and error, see what your win rates pan out, see how well you can CS, see how well you can lane, but you really want to break down your champion pool into 2 or 3 strong ADCs that you can look to abuse in different situations when your team fights call for different areas. Maybe the enemy team has a lot of assassins, you have a pick. Maybe if the enemy team is a front-to-back team fight composition, you want to start playing Jinx a little bit. That can be an ideal situation. So if you have any questions about champion pool, I love answering these kind of things. And if you want me to take a look at your OPGG, I'd be more than happy to help. You can just link it down in the comments down below. And that will wrap up tip number 2. All right, and jumping into tip number 3, I want to talk a little bit about team fighting and positioning. So the safest way to play team fights is to go to your maximum range, where you can get both in autos and you can do your abilities in different situations. Now, I want you to imagine your teammates as you have tethers with them. The stronger you are, or the closer you are, the stronger you're going to be. If you're going over too far to the side, maybe you're looking to do a small ward on the side, but then a Zed jumps you from the bush, you're going to have a lot less chance of survival than you would be if you have a bunch of teammates around. They could slow or stun or shield or do a lot of different things that can help you survive. So when you're looking at a team fight in position, you want to understand the different max threat range from both of your enemies and the overall ability for your allies to help you from different situations. For example, a Braum jumping over with a W is about right there. I don't play too much Braum, but I understand that it is about that range. So you want to stay in the decent range where you're able to have a large effect on the team fight but not overextending in different situations. Now also with positioning comes the really important thing to understand in cooldown windows, things with huge cooldowns that are going to overall sway the team fights. For example, the biggest thing that Miss Fortune has is her ult. When the ult is down, there is not going to be too much damage that is going to be coming out of her compared to other ADCs. So for example, if the enemy team has a Fizz or a Zed and they use an ultimate on your mid laner or someone else on your team, you are able to position a little bit more forward. You should think of it as, over, if you ever thought of counting cards, it'd be like a +1. You have a stronger chance to survive when bigger cooldowns are used by the enemies. So for example, maybe there's the enemy team likes starting fights with a Fizz throwing in a fish and jumping in and causing all kinds of chaos. Waiting in this kind of position where a lot of people can block the shark for you is going to be a really advantageous situation where you do not have to be in the front line autoing at all points. Maybe you can just stay in your overall ability range and you do not have to move up too forward until those really big cooldowns are used, and then you can look to start getting some auto attacks in on the team fight. So always you have to understand two things in team fights. You want to think of tethers with your teammates and enemies, and then overall cooldown window usage, and getting a really good mastery on those two ideals I think can be extremely important. If you have any questions or if you want a little bit of help with one of those, you can ask me down below. I'd be more than happy to help you guys, and that will wrap up this tip. All right, and jumping into tip number 4, I want to talk about an extremely important concept that will save you so much LP. It will save you so many hours of gameplay when you are looking to climb, and that you do not have to be the hero in every single game. I know it is tempting when playing in ADC because it has one of the highest carry potentials of any other role in the late game, but you really need to get through that early game and that mid-game laning phase when you are not the strongest. Maybe you can even get soloed by some supports at certain times. So how you want to look to this is you do not always have to fight. You do not always have to look to continuously engage. You can look for very rarely are you going to get frozen on, so you can just wait to collect CS under tower. Say the rest of your map is doing well, but the enemy team has a Vayne Smurf that's 2-0 and you're 0-2, you can absolutely throw the game, throw that LP, and do a 30-point or maybe a 40-point LP swing by giving up a easy win by just not wanting to just play defensive and not be the hero in this game. So understanding the certain game state and what you have to do to win the game is going to be rather important. Now, sometimes seeding the tower and farming deep at your tier 2 and pushing the lane is going to be a viable strategy in situations where you are getting smashed in lane over and over again. Maybe they're even tower diving you and they're getting picks on you in those fights. This will allow the enemy team to rotate around the map, but you will get access to a lot of free farm and be able to scale. So sometimes it is the right decision to siege your tower in certain situations that the enemy team is really just dumpstering you in lane. So just have that mentality, carry when you can carry, understand your limits, do not push too hard and go 0-8, 0-9. No one likes that on the team. A lot of the times, seeing an ADC like that is going to cause an FF vote from a lot of the team because they know that they are not going to have as much late game pressure as the enemy team, because ADCs can carry team fights extremely effectively. So not overfeeding when you are in, realizing that you are in a losing game, can be a great trait to have and can be an extremely useful tool to help you climb, and minimizing your losses is going to be just something that is going to help you out so much in League of Legends. So that will wrap up this tip. All right, and getting into the final tip, I'm going to throw a couple smaller tips at you guys that I think can really help you out. So the first thing that I was just absolutely amazed by from Iron to Gold is how often I was able to abuse enemy ADCs and supports by just dipping into Fog of War after doing maybe a quick auto ability trade, and then they would be discouraged to try and check the bush, and you would just fall out and they wouldn't be able to return autos on you. So understanding that you can break line of sight is going to be a rather important tool for the lower elos where they are not able to return, or maybe they're not warding correctly. And so always make sure to look to abuse the Fog of War when it is possible. Second, And most important thing is getting to understand the terrain that is in the bot lane and knowing exactly the crevices that you need to go to where you can flash over the walls, particularly this one because it is a rather thick wall. Certain spots you are not able to flash over. See, if I tried to do a diagonal flash here, it is way too far and I would just flash into the wall. But if I'm deep into the wall right here, I can get over it like that. So just getting a super good understanding of the overall terrain of this lane will help you extremely significantly. Also understanding that when you flash out of Fog of War, it's harder for them to, they're less likely to follow you with the flash, as well as it's going to be harder for them to hit skill shots. So always being able to look for maybe a flash over a wall right here is going to be a little bit more effective than just flashing in a straight line away from the enemy like that. So understanding this rock and then understanding the wall right here, the exact point where you are able to get over, because it is extremely important to get away as quickly as possible when at a low HP threshold. So understanding these different walls, these different flash points is going to be exceedingly important. Finally, I don't know why I held this until the end, but this is an extremely important tip for people that struggle against particular supports or particular ADCs. Say that you hate Blitzcrank. Maybe you play a mobile ADC like Twitch or something like a Jinx and you're always getting hooked. I heavily encourage you guys to play that champion in normals and you will start to understand its weaknesses rather quickly. For example, Blitzcrank, really long Q cooldown that he can get punished so heavily after he misses at level 1. Also, really high mana cost on his Q, being at around 100 mana, as well as after he uses his W and gets that speed up, he actually is slowed for a decent amount of time, as well as his passive. It gives him a pretty good defensiveness when he falls low at a low HP, but it is a rather long cooldown, and if you force multiple all-ins, you're going to start finding that Blitzcrank is going to be squishier on the second all-in comparatively, as well as he might not even have Aftershock as well. So doing a faux engage and then a second engage on the Blitzcrank can be a really decent way to get some of his cooldowns out and really find a squishy target like that. As well as you can do the same thing with Draven. Say you play a bunch of Dravens in normals and you always lose to Draven in rank. You want to try it out in normals, find some weaknesses, find some counters. People will literally show you the roadmap to how to beat that champion. Maybe you play against a Varus that can bully out the Draven. Maybe you play against a support that was able to poke out the Draven, which can be a little bit frustrating. So there are a lot of different ways that you can look to do it. Also, playing a lot of supports in the normal games can help you develop a kind of a cool little pocket pick that you're really good at when you get autofilled in a certain situation, as well as you will learn overall more about the lane when you are playing it. So I would recommend for any ADC main to have support as their secondary so they can just get as much time logged into that bot lane and get a really good understanding of every single champion that is going to be thrown down there and just be a overall better player. So that is going to wrap up my video, guys. A little bit longer than I expected, but I had a lot of fun climbing with support, and I really wanted to help out all the kind of ADC players that I saw struggling. So I hope these tips helped out, and as well as you guys, if you got your own tips, guys, please make sure to add them down below. And as always, guys, take it easy.